Hello and welcome to Joliet Junior College. I am Chef Ken Thompson, culinary instructor here for the Culinary Arts program. And I have the pleasure of introducing Chef Jess in just a minute, who is going to do some cake decorating demos and tips for us. Before we get started with that, I just wanted to do a quick overview of the college and some information about our program. We're located in downtown Joliet at the Joliet Junior College's City Center campus. The JGC Culinary Arts Management program offers an associate's degree in culinary arts management. The program can be completed in approximately 2 years. We also offer certificates in culinary arts and baking and pastry, so if you're interested in either one of those, we offer certificates of completion. The campus has 11 professional kitchens located at our City Center campus. We're on 5 different floors. The kitchens are almost brand new. We've been in this building for about 3 years, so the kitchens are just immaculate and just beautiful. We offer 2 restaurants that are student run and open to the public. We encourage you, if you would like to come out and join us for dinner or lunch one day, to call ahead and make reservations. There's only so many seats available and there is lots of demand. So we encourage you to call ahead before you come out for lunch or dinner with us. We offer small class sizes. Lab classes are limited to 16 students per lab, which is 1 instructor and 16 students. So there's a great ratio of student to instructor learning. All lab classes are hands-on, so it's not a video. You can actually come in and cook. So it's a nice opportunity to come in and make stuff from scratch. So it's a wonderful program. Graduates go on from our program to start their own business, to become executive chefs at country clubs and casinos and restaurants and all sorts of activities. So we have lots of graduate placements and opportunities for students that are in the program and graduates in the program. If you would like more information about the Culinary Arts Management program, there is contact information at the bottom of the screen. Please feel free to contact our department secretary and she will get back to you as quickly as possible. And we can schedule a time for you to come out and see the program and see the college and answer any questions you have about our wonderful Culinary Arts Management program. So without delay, I'm going to introduce one of my former students, and it's absolutely a privilege to see you here today with us. So I had Chef Jess in class just over 2 years ago. We're just under 2 years. It's been it's been gone by really quickly. Yes. So Chef Jess is going to talk to us about cake decorating, some tips. And thank you for coming out today. It's a pleasure to have you back at the campus, and I'm so proud of all you've done so far. And you've done such amazing things in such a short period of time. So I'm going to turn it over to you. Thanks for coming out today, and Chef Jess is going to help finish stuff up today. So have a great rest of your day, and thanks, Chef Jess.
Thank you. Thanks for the introduction. Hello, and thank you so much for watching. I'm Chef Jess, and today I'm here to talk to you about cake decorating. First and foremost, this is where I got my start. So I actually started in cakes about 8 years before I came to Joliet Junior College. So I'd made a cake or two, and I decided I wanted to learn everything there was about culinary. I wanted to connect all the dots between all of the ingredients, all the methods, all the recipes that were so amazing to me. So I came here in 2018 and I went through the program in just over a year, took overload every semester and was ecstatic about it every moment. It was amazing. So after I graduated, I decided one of the classes I took here that I was in love with is ice carving. There are so many that I could fall in love with here, that's for sure. I loved sugar sculpting, chocolate sculpting, ice carving, all the savory cooking classes, but ice carving was one I had never been exposed to before, and I just couldn't get enough of it. So I ended up getting hired at Nadeau's Ice Sculptures in Forest Park, and I've been working there. This will be my 3rd carving season, so about 1.5 years, almost 2 years now. And I have learned so much. I have bulked up some muscles for sure. And truthfully, the bridge between cake to savory food to sugar to chocolate to ice carvings would have never happened without coming here to JJC. So I'm definitely grateful for having this experience, and what I think I'm most grateful for is the development of my own personal brand based off of everything I learned here and everything I learned in the years in cakes before that. So my business is Flower Tiled Stuff, and it is actually a very diverse business that offers all the things that I love to make from cake to ice carvings to chocolate and sugar centerpieces to even veggie fresh garden vegetable eats. So today I'm actually here to finish up decorating this cake. It is actually a 3-tiered cake, and I've actually got 2 layers, 4 layers, and 3 layers on the internal structure, just to give the tiers a little bit of a dimension with the height difference. And I have built these in a way over the years where I have refined it, and I feel as though I could bring a cake just about anywhere. So my tips for building a cake are really simple. They don't require very many specialized tools. Obviously, you start by icing the cakes individually, and then the stacking is where it gets to be a little bit intimidating. So the methods I've found that really help is truthfully just knowing the right supplies. So you start just with using these straws, as crazy as it may sound. They are hollow, they are very sturdy. Although they are very thin and lightweight, they're very sturdy. So you place them in the middle of the cake, maybe 8 or 6 in a circle, depending on the size of tier, and then 1 or 2 in the middle, again, depending on the size of tier. And you want to make sure that they're cut perfectly the same level as the cake tier, so that it creates almost a nice little shelf for the next cake then to sit on. So this middle tier, it's sitting on a cake board. It's stacked perfectly on top of the little shelf I've created for it out of these straws. And then it's really just rinse and repeat. So I've built myself another little shelf on this 8-inch tier. It's a little bit taller, so you want to make sure when you're doweling it to measure them all. I actually put them in the cake and then pull it up a little bit, trim it, and put it back down. Then you can kind of look and see, oh, they're all level, that's perfect, and then continue stacking. So I think the most valuable tip, that is very typical for building a cake, but the most valuable of all is using these wooden skewers. I would not think that something this small and dainty would be able to make this cake as stable as it is, but truthfully, I take these skewers, I poke it down from the very top of the cake, or if it's very tall like this one, I'll actually poke it down from the middle tier, all the way down through the board, all the way into the cake, and there's actually a board under here that it's into, so it's literally locking the entire cake in place. And then, since this is a taller cake, I went ahead and stacked the 6-inch tier. And again, I have 2 more of these dowels going all the way through the board. So this cake, it's not going anywhere. Once you have the structural issues down for a tiered cake, then it's the fun part, truthfully. It's the decorations, it's the exciting, it's the colorful, it's the creativity, it's the reason everyone loves cake decorating. So here today I chose to go with a flower child stuff design. So I went ahead and created my logo on the front, which is a G for Grafer, which is my last name, and I created that out of fondant. I actually created the wooden planks here out of fondant as well. And I think the most important thing here is color choice. When you're doing a cake that represents a personal brand or store or a specific theme. So I would say that when you're mixing up the colors, the most time spent in decorating is mixing them. So when I was mixing this brown, I maybe added a little more brown and mixed it up repeatedly for 15 minutes before I got the perfect shade of brown. Maybe cooling it off with a little bit of green dye, since the brown dyes have a tendency to have a little bit of a red hue to them. So at the end of the day, if the color match is exact, it's spot on and it is absolutely gorgeous. So once I got the right color brown, I went ahead and used the same tones and just gave myself a lighter and a very light shade of the same brown, just to give myself a marbling effect on these wooden planks. Now there's so many ways to do wood grain with fondant or buttercream, none of which are the wrong way. I have done it many ways, but for this particular look, just to go with the branding as far as the wood grain goes, it's very clean and consistent. So I chose to opt for the mold method, which this was maybe $5 at Hobby Lobby. And it has the wood grain consistently and perfectly in there. So that when you roll the fondant over it, every single wood plank will end up having the exact same wood grain. Sometimes the cake design you're doing is a little more organic and you tend to not not want to go as much of an organized wood grain pattern. But for this instance, I found it almost perfect. And then to break it down and make it look a little more like wood planks, I went ahead and just took simple tools again, just a bendy ruler, and I went ahead and just bent it around the cake and marked off where my planks were going to be. And then I just took a pizza cutter would work too. This is a little more dull, so it won't cut through as harshly as a pizza cutter. And I just went through and marked my planks. And then you can even use the end of the ruler, something very simple, for the shorter ends to mark those in. Once I added those details, it really made the wood grain pop. But one last thing that I like to add is just a little bit of airbrush color. So I have here my Airbrush Compressor and Gun. And this is a tool that I have had, these last a very long time. I got this on Amazon. I've probably had it, I would say 6 years at least. So what's wonderful about these is they come with an airbrush gun that is a dual, well, they have many types of airbrush guns, but I would say the best type is a dual action airbrush gun. And what that does is you can push down and then push back, and that really helps you control the amount of airbrush color that comes through here. So I'm going to go ahead and airbrush this cake. And when you turn it on, it's a little bit noisy, so you want to make sure, and it does vibrate. It's running air through here, so it does have a tendency to move around on the table. If you have a no-slip mat or a wet towel, that's a great thing to use, and it just helps it from wandering its way off onto the floor. Okay, so for airbrushing this cake, we are going to use, these are Airbrush Colors. They are a liquidier version of the gel paste colors that you can use for coloring fondant. So we're going to just put a couple drops in here. A little goes a long way. And then I'm going to give it just a little test, make sure that my color is coming out beautifully. Once I see that the color is flowing through, I'm going to keep one hand on my airbrush gun, speaking from experience, and then you can actually add just a little bit of detail in between the wood planks. Actually just add some extra dimension in between. Definitely adds a level of realistic to the decoration. And you can kind of see one side without and one side with. It's really nice and kind of creates a little bit of an illusion of space in between the planks. So what's really great about this airbrush gun is not only can you use it to add dimension or simple details to a cake, but you could actually airbrush an entire cake a color if you didn't want to ice a cake a color, because maybe it's going to change the people's teeth colors when they eat it. You could actually airbrush it a darker color. You can airbrush things like tie-dye, different swirls, dynamic backgrounds and scenes. And airbrush is something that's super fun to play with, but also very efficient to use when you're talking about large-scale decorating. Okay, so now that we have done our airbrushing, I am going to add some piped sunflowers to the top. So this is one of the first flowers I learned how to make as a cake decorator. It just requires one frosting tip, which is a leaf tip. It actually looks like a triangle if you look at it from the side. And they have small, medium, and large leaf tips, some of which are complete with a veining tool in the middle. All different styles are perfectly fine. Sunflowers come in all shapes and sizes. So today I'm going to start with the darker yellow and then do a slightly lighter yellow layer of petals around it. So one really great way, if you haven't done them before, is to use a circle cutter, something that you can use as a guide to space your petals around so that your flower is perfectly symmetrical. So for this, I want to go ahead and just make sure there's a couple sunflowers right here in the front. You don't want to add too many because this is a pretty simple design. But adding a buttercream sunflower and then pairing it with something like a fresh sunflower is really a perfect way to add dimension and bring a flower to life. So first, a flower needs to have a stem. So for this, I'm just using a writing tip. This is a number 3 writing tip. And I'm going to go ahead and just pipe a stem. And I'm going for a little more of a whimsy approach here, so I don't want to do a stem that's just a straight line. I want something with a little bit of curvature to it. And then I'm actually going to go ahead and take one of my offsets. And you can see I have 3 different offsets here. They are all for different size and different angles of jobs. This one here is my very tiny job offset. I'm just going to gently smooth over. And then I'm going to just draw in a couple leaves. So these can be organic, shaped in whichever way. Sunflower leaves are large, and there's typically about 3 of them per stalk or more. And what you want to do is give yourself a rough shape of a leaf. You're really just applying frosting at this point, because then I'm going to take an offset and just smooth it out and give it a little bit of flair. You can kind of use your offset to give it a little bit of a vein within the frosting. Just a couple more, and the way that you space your leaves can really depict the realism of the flower or the personality of the flower. Okay, so once the leaves are looking organic and beautiful, it's time to do the petals. So for these, the circle is there as a guide, and so that really keeps it simple. And with these tips, the best way to use them is apply pressure in the beginning, then let go and pull out gently. And that is something that you learn over time, working with these tips more often. And you have to make sure that the point of the tip, of the leaf tip, is pointed directly to the middle of the circle. That way, when you pull out, the tip of the petal and the vein of the petal all line up nice, in a nice symmetrical circle, so that none of the petals are misaligned, especially as we go in and add the second layer. Just need a couple more petals here. And then a lighter yellow is really going to add that extra dimension. So around on the inside. In between, and sometimes skipping one if necessary, so that the spacing remains nice and even. Since the internal circle is smaller than the external circle of the darker yellow petals, slight adjustments may need to be made for the placement of the inner layer of petals. Then, sunflowers have that beautiful brown center. So for these, use a grass tip. So grass tip looks like it has a bunch of small dots on the end of the tip. And that is great not only for sunflower centers, but also for hair, for grass, obviously, for different textures on furniture, different textures on animals. But for this, makes a perfect little center for a sunflower. So I'm going to do that one more time, slightly smaller, and I'm actually going to make the stems look like they go together. Typically you'll see flowers in 2s or 3s, or maybe 2 on one side and 1 on the other side, something that makes sense for the design. And then it's really nice to be able to plan your flower placement so that you can have sunflower petals overlaying the others. That way they look like they are paired together. It's a little more 3D-like that way. So for that, you actually go over your other petals, coming the other direction. Applying pressure, letting go, pulling out. Apply pressure, letting go, pulling out, until you have the shape and length of leaf that you're looking for, or petal in this situation. And then the lighter yellow on the interior. And since these petals are laying over these, it adds a little bit of layering effect, which is really nice. Now that I can see how far down the petals come, I'm just going to add just 2 small leaves here, just to kind of fill out my little pair of flowers here. Smooth out the leaves just a little bit. It's nice to clean, you've seen me do this many times now, it's nice to clean the spatula before going in to re-smooth anything. If you have a little bit of frosting on the end of your spatula and you go in to try to smooth something, it deposits that bit of frosting you had and keeps you from being able to create a smooth surface. So now, got our nice leaves there. And give ourselves a center for this flower. The grass tip used to be one of my favorite tips to use because I got to make monster cakes with them. Cover the entire cake with the grass tip, add some googly eyes, and you have a very fun monster cake. So now we have a couple of really nice looking sunflowers here that goes with the entire brand and matches all of the packaging. And as much as this seems like it's a little bit redundant, or there's some attention to detail here that maybe isn't necessary, the years I've spent in cake decorating has taught me that when you get an order, when you have someone that comes to you and they want you to make a cake that just is them in cake form, if you take the time to match every single color perfectly, make sure the font of the logo is as close as possible, making sure that even down to the frosting here is vanilla bean. So there's little tiny specks of vanilla bean that just looks a little more rustic. It definitely reads a little more natural organic, which is the gear that we're going towards with Flower Child stuff. So this is something that for a customer, if they bring in packaging or an invitation or a sticker, even something for a party, if you're paying attention to those details, that's really what sets your cake apart and elevates the entire experience to the next level. So just to finish this cake off, I'm going to just top it off with a fresh flower on the top over here, just to give it a nice complete look. And there's many ways that you can do this. Applying fresh flowers is very traditional. For wedding cakes, you can either actually insert them into the cake. You can make a little bouquet of any small flowers that are going to be applied, add some floral wire, and just insert them into the top. But since sunflower stems are so thick, it wouldn't be a good idea to insert that into the cake, or it wouldn't be as clean and easy. So truthfully, just for the sake of presentation, and it's that way with a lot of different ways too, once you're setting up the cake, they're not going to move it anywhere. You can just lay them on the cake nicely, or you can apply it with just a little bit of vanilla buttercream. That way you know that it's not going to budge. It can kind of act as just a little bit of glue. I'll put a little back here behind the stem as well. And then at this point, I would go ahead and finish airbrushing the rest of the wood grain, maybe pipe a couple extra sunflowers just to fill in a little bit. But truthfully, this is a cake that going into cake decorating when I was just 20 years old, I would have been super proud to create. And I was able to do it here for you in just a matter of a short period of time. So with just a few of the right tools and tips, creating something like this is doable and can be something that is even more special because you were able to create it yourself. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and so thank you so much for watching my cake decorating demo today, and feel free to come on to JJC, eat at the restaurants downstairs, inquire about what it would be like to come here as a student, because the growth that is possible here, even as an experienced professional coming here, the growth is exponential, so it's completely worth it. So thank you so much. Have a great day.